Hi, I'm Kitty, and welcome to my attic. This is where I come to do all kinds of crafty things and where I come to you to talk about them. So today we are going to be focusing on knitting because this is going to be my very first attempt at a knitting podcast. So we're going to go through kind of the typical knitting podcast format and go through some of my recent finished objects, one of which you might already be seeing, and some other things I have on my needles, and maybe talk a little bit about some plans I have going forward to make some acquisitions. I don't think I have any acquisitions, so to speak, this week, but we will get there when we get there. And yeah, I'm really excited to get started. So we can start right away with the first finished object, which is this sweater I am wearing. This came off my needles just a few days ago and could already use a wash because I wore it apple picking yesterday. We went with some cousins and took the kids all out to an apple orchard in the area, and it was a really fun time, but I did get a little smudged up. But I put the sweater on to record today so I could show my work here. So I've got notes here so I don't get too off track, hopefully. So this is the Rosabella sweater. It is a pattern by Emily Nora O'Neill. It was designed for Barocco using their alpaca yarn, which I believe is discontinued, but I have a great recommendation for that. So it is a free pattern available online for free, and I just think it's a gorgeous pattern. It has this beautiful lace and bobble texture, and I just think it's so pretty, and with the alpaca it's so drapey. So I did knit mine out of 100% alpaca. This is a sport weight alpaca I picked up at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool from Enchanted Meadows Alpaca, and they have an Etsy store I can link where you can also get this yarn, and it was pretty reasonable. So I pretty much stuck to the pattern recommendations. I got oh, there's a fly in here. That's gonna be a bummer. So we'll just ignore it, and hopefully it's not going to be disruptive. So I used the recommended needle size, which is a US size 2.5 for ribbing, or a 3mm, and a US size 4 for the main pattern, and that is a 3.5mm. And that gave this, and the yarn I used, like I said, it's 100% alpaca, and it was a sport weight yarn. And I think it worked up very beautifully in this pattern, if I do say so myself. The only thing, I feel like my bobbles are not very pronounced in some places. I think I did them right. Some of them turned out very nice and bobbly. And in fact, some of them, if I was gonna have a complaint about the pattern, it didn't give you a lot of insight on around this shoulder area where to stop knitting in the lace and bobble pattern and where to leave maybe a little bit of stockinette to join the seam. This is knit in pieces. So there are 4 pieces, the front, back, and 2 sleeves. And then you also pick up and knit a neckline. So some criticisms I would have about the pattern, which it's free, so just no going in. You know, I'm not gonna say you get what you pay for, because you get more than what you pay for. This is a beautiful sweater, and I am 100% just nitpicking. I'm very happy and pleased for a free pattern. This was gorgeous. However, there was not a lot of guidance about where to knit in pattern and where to leave stockinette to join your pieces together around the sleeve. So I do have some weird kind of, I shouldn't have made these bobbles up here, but I'm not so mad about it I'm gonna go back and do anything about it. I'm just gonna let it be. So I do have some kind of lumpy bits around here. Now, I haven't blocked the piece since I seamed it. I blocked each individual panel and sleeve before I joined, but I didn't block the finished piece. So there's that. So it's gonna get a good wash tonight, and I'm gonna probably block it. Wash and block because it needs it. So we'll see, maybe that'll change it, because my other complaint is something that I did to myself. The pattern recommends you knit a certain length before you start shaping for the armholes and shoulders. And I just decreased it by an inch because usually I'm very short-waisted, and I thought I knew better. So I took an inch off, and I'm feeling it's just a little bit too cropped. It hits right at the tippy top of my most high-waisted jeans. And I wore it yesterday, and nobody said, man, that looks weird, but who would say that to my face? So, just assume everyone in my life is polite, and maybe I should have knit this just the teensiest bit longer, but I might be able, it might relax a little bit again with a little gentle tugging while blocking. So yeah, that's that. I knit it pretty much as written, followed the directions, and I think it turned out very well. I'm very happy with it. It's not itchy except maybe right around the collarbone. Sometimes I feel that little bit of a prickle that you get. I feel like anything where you have like a fuzz or a halo on the yarn at all, you're gonna feel a little bit of that prickle. But this is not bad. And when you're touching it, it feels so soft. So soft. And it has a nice bit of drape compared to wool. It's a little softer, flowier. So I do feel like it might weigh down over time, but we'll see. I'm very happy with the sleeve length. I was going to cut them off early because I'm always impatient to finish, and my husband said, don't, because he is a good listener and he knows that I'm impatient and always trying to shortchange myself on length. So at least the sleeves are good. I can pull them up over my hands, which I like, but also the ribbing is tight enough that I can pull it up at my elbows and it stays while I move, which I really appreciate. So that is my first finished object, the Rosabella sweater. I'll link to my Ravelry project page down below. And if you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out, and I will answer any questions that I receive that I can, honestly. So for my next finished object, this is the Under the Ivy beanie that I test knit for Michi Fraz or Michelle. She has the Not the Worsted podcast here on YouTube, and she's looking for testers for this beanie pattern, and I signed up and she accepted me. How kind of her. So this is inspired by The Secret Garden. She has a video where she talks all about it, so you can go watch her. She'll do a better job describing her inspiration and everything for this. And it is a companion to her Under the Ivy cowl. So this version that I made is the DK version of the hat, and it is actually made with 2 strands of fingering held together. Because the cowl is knit out of fingering weight yarn, she wanted you to be able to use your leftovers to make a beanie, but she didn't really want a fingering weight beanie. So she decided if you hold it double, that it gave it a little bit more weight, felt more appropriate for a winter hat. But she was able to get that to work out with the same colorwork pattern that the cowl has. So I haven't knit the cowl. I don't know if I will. I'm not really a cowl person. So we will see if I ever get there, but I do really love this colorwork pattern. I especially love this little ivy pattern here at the bottom and the flowers together. It's giving very garden. So that makes sense. So the yarn that I used is the 100 Ravens Iachos base, and the 2 colors I used, the red for the main color, kind of this purpley maroony red. It's giving wine. I love it. It's called the Queen My son is slamming doors and my husband is telling him to not slam doors. So hopefully that's not coming across too loud here. So this color is called The Queen That Never Was, which I believe is a Game of Thrones reference. All of these yarns have such fun names that I'm not always picking up the reference. And then the variegated colorway here is called Jelly Cakes. And I was not able to find these specific colorways on their website. I don't know if they're discontinued or if I'm not good at using the internet, but I can link to, they have so many beautiful colors on their website available. So you can get a similar effect, I'm sure, holding double, or if you wanted to knit it in just a straight DK, I'm sure that would work just the same. But yeah, it was a real straightforward. The colorwork pattern doesn't have too many long areas of a single color where you have to carry your floats too far. I was really only catching a few of my floats. Most of the time I just did my best to carry them along. So there you go. There's the inside of the hat. And for now, the pom-pom may look like it's holding on by a thread because I only have it safety pinned on because I was too impatient to properly attach my pom-pom. So that is my second finished object of the week, and I have one more because it is beanie making season. We're gonna see a lot of beanies today. I'm sorry if beanies are not your thing because they have been mine lately, and I'm not normally a beanie knitter. This one is a special one. I still need to weave in the ends, so I don't know if I can technically call this a finished object because I've got a tail. But this is the, let me pull up my info here. I always forget the exact name of this pattern. It is the Soft and Cushy hat. I always want to call it squishy because it is so squishy. But it is the Soft and Cushy hat from Purl Soho. This is another free pattern. So if you are looking for a really thick, squishy beanie pattern, this is it. It is so warm and will really give you a lot of mileage, but it does eat yarn. It's a kind of yarn heavy one because I believe it is knit in half fisherman rib. So it's knit one, purl one, and then knit one, or purl one, so it's purl one, knit one, then purl one, knit one below is the way it goes. And my only advice for you if you were going to make this is that it is big. These hats are big. This is the toddler size. I'm making one of these for each of my kids, and I decided to start with what I thought would be the size for my middle child. I thought she would wear the toddler size, my son would wear the child size, and my girls would wear the baby size. However, once I started getting this going, this one is going to be for my son because honestly, I can wear this hat easy. So I'm going to be sizing each of theirs down a size category, and I will probably just do the math to go down one size further even for the little ones for their hats. So get used to seeing these because I've got more. I'm going to be casting another one on as soon as I'm finished with my other beanie, my last beanie of the day, I promise. This one is another gift knit. So that's, I don't know if you call it a gift knit. I'm knitting it for my kids to wear around Christmas, but it's not really a present for them. I'm not treating it like a present, but this is a present. This is a beanie for my mother-in-law, who you may have guessed lives in Michigan. And this is from Stunning Strings Studio, I want to say. Let me double check. Yes, this is from Stunning String Studio. I picked up a kit at the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival where it had both colors of yarn. So it was 50 grams each of the main color and contrast color. And it came also, oh, let me grab it. Well, I don't know what I did with it. But I'm gonna have to find it soon because I'm almost done. I have like one more round of decreases. And this will also be a mostly finished object. It definitely needs its ends woven in and it could use a block. I'm really hoping this blocks out because I do have a little bit of texture. My only complaint about this is that the great state of Michigan, nothing against Michigan, but it does not lend itself really well to color work. There are a lot of long sections where you are carrying floats, and I'm not always the best at keeping my tension over those areas. I did knit inside out while I was working the color work for the most part, and I think that may have helped a little bit with carrying the floats over those big areas, making sure I had enough. But I know I tend to carry my floats too tight, and I did that. And I'm hoping this texture blocks out. And honestly, if it doesn't, we might be ripping this all out and doing it again. But it didn't take me very long. It took me probably less than a week really of actively working on this to do that. But you can see there's a lot of floats just carrying and catching along here. But I think I started talking about it and didn't even finish my thought. It came with a little tag and a little heart button, and the tag says, I heart Michigan. And you can add the little heart button on one of your states where you live in the state. So you can, if you live up in the UP, you can add your little marker over here. If you're all the way up at the corner of Wisconsin or over here. If you're on Mackinac Island, I think you're out of luck because I don't think you got your own stitch, but in the vicinity, you can figure it out. So this is gonna be finished hopefully by the end of the day. I'm hoping I can finish up filming here and get this blocking as well. Maybe I'll just do a big knit washing party after this. We'll see if my kids cooperate. My husband's got some errands to run, so we'll see. And then I've got, I have two more works in progress to talk about. This is my reset Cardi. The designer is, I don't know how you say her name. It is La Maison Really. I'm not good at French, so don't come at me. But the designer's name is Really, and I'm very much enjoying the process of knitting this cardigan. This once again is knit out of 100% alpaca that I received for last Christmas, and you can tell where I blocked it to make sure I was getting happy with the results up here before I moved on. And it's, yeah. So I just finished the body and cast off this edge here, the bottom ribbing edge. It's a little bit unwieldy here to hold up. Maybe next time, if I do this again, I'll bring over the mannequin. We can make her wear it. So, yeah, I'm just gonna put it on. Give me a minute. We are currently buttonless, but this is how it's going. I think it's gonna fit really well. I'm a little worried it's gonna pull a little bit here, but I'm not, it's hard to say. I feel like there's a little bit too much room in some areas and maybe not enough in others, but usually that means everything will work out okay. We just need to believe. So this is how it's looking so far. I will say my tubing here that I've got the stitches held on is a little bit tight around my arm. It's tighter than the stitches themselves are. So we have some decisions to make here. The first thing is the pattern calls for an I-cord bind off here at the bottom of this ribbing, which I feel like is giving it a lot of flair. I don't know if that was my execution. I felt like I was trying very hard to be very tight and consistent with that. And maybe that blocks out. I don't know. I haven't really done a lot of I-cord bind off, which may be part of the problem. So I do feel like that's giving it a little bit of flair. I normally would do like a tubular bind off or an Italian. I'm not really sure. I just follow the same YouTube tutorial that I will link below whenever it tells me to cast off in pattern when I'm doing ribbing. This is what I do. So yeah, we will see. It does give it a really clean finish because it does have an I-cord running down the whole side here, and it makes a really nice turn around this corner. But this corner, my grafting was meh at best. So my favorite part of this definitely is this gorgeous shoulder construction. It just, I think it turned out very nicely. I'm pretty pleased with it. And now I have to think about sleeves. So I've been thinking, I finished the, oh, don't get caught to my watch band. I finished the bind off here just like maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and it's just been sitting off to the side while I think about what I want to do with sleeves. The pattern does have 2 options for sleeves, either a short sleeve that comes to kind of just above the elbow, or a long sleeve that has more of a balloon at the cuff, which I'm not always 100% sure I love a balloon sleeve. So I'm gonna read both options and see what I like. I might just, if it calls for increases in the sleeve, I might just knit it straight, but I don't even know. I haven't read it. I haven't been thinking very much about this. I was just so excited to get it off the needle theoretically. Now, another thing I've been thinking about with this one is I have been knitting this on, this is also on US size 4 for the body and size 2.5 for the ribbing. And I've been using my Addies for this one because I was using my Chiagu on the Rosabella. But I like the Chiagu better. But I'm worried that if I switch now to using the Chiagu on this one, that it will change my tension. That you'll be able to see a difference where I pick up these stitches for the sleeve. But I really, really, really like, especially knitting a small circle in the round, the Chiagu cords are just so much more flexible. Let me see if I can grab them real quick to show you. I found it. It was right there the whole time. Here's the little notions kit. It says I Heart Michigan and it's got a little button in there. And a red stitch marker that I didn't use for my beginning of round because I always use a blue stitch marker for beginning of round because then I always know which one it is. But yeah, I just thought this was really cute. I picked this up once again at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool. That's where I did a big shopping trip at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool. I'd been saving up for a while and really thinking about it. So if you're curious about that, I have a knitting plans video where I talk more about that. I'll link that somewhere. So these are my Addies. I have the Addi Click interchangeable set that I've had for probably a decade now, and they have held up, but I don't like them as much as I like the non-interchangeable Chiagus. I also have the Chiagu interchangeable, but I got the shorties, and I don't really love the shorties. And also, I don't know if it's just a problem with the shorties or if it's all of their interchangeables, I find they come loose all the time. I'm constantly kind of tightening up my needles. And the one time I really was like, I'm not gonna mess around with this, I broke a needle. They were great and they replaced it when I broke it with, I would say, not very much force. But the connection points are just so thin. So I just started getting plain old long cable. I think this is 40-inch. Maybe it's 30 something inch cable. It might be 40 inches. I don't remember. But they're so flexible and so thin compared to, you can see the Addi has more memory to it. It doesn't flex around as much. It always snaps right back into that same spot. So when you're doing magic loop, it tends to make those stitches where the loop sits a little more wonky, whereas this one, it really does collapse on itself very nicely. So we might just do a little test. We might do, you know, like 2 inches of sleeve, see if it's making a difference in the way my stitches look. Might have to do a little block because these stitches have been blocked. And as you can see down here, there's a big change, or at least I think it looks like a big change from where it goes from the blocked fabric to the unblocked fabric. Not just where there's the ribbing, but just like the stockinette unblocked here. So that's the next step for this, is I think I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna decide what sleeve I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna try out the Chiago Needles knitting sleeves on here. And it always feels so close when you finish the body, and then sleeves take so much longer. This I do think will go a little bit faster than the Rosabella sleeves because they did have to go up all the way over the cap, whereas this, you know, at least this much of the sleeve is really already done for me compared to a like seamed sweater construction. You'd have to do all of this as part of the sleeve. Probably just a little bit delusional. All right, I'm taking this off now. I do think the last little finish I'm gonna do on this sweater is I need to put a little tag in the back, little ribbon, so I can more easily tell, because every time now I pick it up by the shoulders and have to look, where is there a little bit more room for the neck? So. Is that just a me problem? Do other people have that? Do other knitters put on their sweaters backwards and have to turn them around? Please tell me I'm not alone. So I have one more active whip to talk about, and one more not even quite a whip. I have too many tote bags. Where am I shoving stuff off? Here we go. An extra needle. So this is the immense amount of progress I have made since I finished the bind off on my cardigan, and I was finished with this. I decided it was time. Alpaca fluff. I decided it was time to cast on a new sweater. So this, if you watched my fall knitting plans, you are one of 4 people who did so, and you will know that this is my field sweater. This is a pattern by Camilla Vad, and I'm really looking forward to it. I am knitting this out of Sun Valley Fibers Blue-Faced Leicester DK in the colorway Sherwood Forest. And I did some swatches, more than one, because I swatched up on the recommended needles, and I washed it, and I was like, this is nowhere close to gauge. So I dropped down and did another swatch, and I was like, this feels a little tight. I don't know. I'm sorry if you can hear a baby crying. I have 2 babies, and they cry, and their dad is there taking care of them, but they do still cry. So the smaller needle, I felt like the fabric was just a little tight, and I measured the gauge and it was right on. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to use the smaller needles. That's fine. And then I couldn't cast it on right away. I did this at my parents' house, and I brought swatches to work on there because I didn't want to bring a big project. So I just did the swatching there, and I couldn't get back to it right away when I got home. And after the swatches sat for a couple days, the gauge on the bigger recommended needles is measuring right on. So I don't know if it was just a little damp and had a little bit more give to it, and that after having sat in my bag, being totally dry for a few days, but I'm getting gauge. I don't want to mess with it, so I'm just using the recommended needles, which I believe is a US size 4 for the ribbing and a US 6 for the body. So I cast on. Let's see, I believe I'm making size 2 in this one. The Rosabella is size 1, and the Reset Cardi I am making in size small, which is they have an extra, extra small, an extra small, and a small is the third size. So size 3, which is called small in the pattern. So for the field sweater, I haven't even made a project page for it. It's still in my queue. I have to make a project page. My goodness, how fun. So over to my queue here. I am knitting size 1 in this. It does call for a bit of positive ease here. So I believe it says everything in this is mostly measured in centimeters. This is a centimeter heavy project, which is fine. Fully capable of using centimeters. I just need consistency. So it does recommend, I think, about 6 centimeters of positive ease, and I'm getting more like 4 centimeters of positive ease on this. But I thought that going up a size was going to give me more like 8 to 10 centimeters of positive ease, which I thought was just a bit too much. And with my gauge being maybe a tad on the looser size, I decided to go with size 1. I thought that would be the safer bet to actually get a garment that gives me the fit that I'm looking for. So hopefully by the next time you see me, I will have actually, this barely feels like I've started working on this, but you know, everything starts somewhere. I think it's so funny when I'm out in public knitting, people will often see something like this on the needles and say, oh, what are you making? And I'll say, oh, I'm knitting a sweater. And they're so taken aback because this obviously does not look like a sweater. But when you look at a sweater, like this is this. Every sweater starts somewhere. And a lot of times somebody will ask me, I'm working on a sweater, and they'll say, oh, for your daughter? And I say, no, for me. And I think it's because it looks so small on the needles, but you know, they grow, things get bigger. But if you're not familiar with the process, it's hard to hold someone to an understanding and knowledge that somebody who obviously is deep in the craft will understand. So this is all I have achieved so far. It's just ribbing. I haven't had to do any of the more difficult aspects of the pattern yet, so I can't really speak too much about it, but the yarn is very soft. It doesn't have any sort of scratch. I think I'm gonna be able to wear this just fine. This is my first time working with a Blueface Leicester wool, and so far I'm really liking it. It's got a nice springiness to it, and yeah. We have one more thing to talk about, and it's a swatch. So if you watched my fall knitting plans video, which as we've established is not very many people, you may have heard me discuss this yarn and my plans for it. This is from Knitting Notions. It is their colorway Earl Grey on their, they call it their sock base, but I believe it's just 100% superwash merino. I don't have the label. Did I tuck it in here? If there's a label in here, no, there's no label in here. So it's definitely 100% superwash wool. Which when I think of a sock yarn, I think it has nylon in it usually, but I don't know, is there a difference between sock weight and fingering weight yarn specifically? I'm not sure, but this is a very thin fingering weight yarn. And I wanted to make the Keep It Warm sweater by Yeon Hwa Lee, I want to say. Yeon Hwa Lee, if I can pronounce things. So she uses 2 yarns held together in her sample, and one of them is it's a very beautiful pink color. I'll put a picture up. And it does have a little bit of variation in the color. It's not a very solid, it's more of a tonal color. And I thought this would be a really nice yarn to use to get that same effect. But I wanted to hold it with a mohair or alpaca. So I'd heard good things about the Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk. So I picked some up. And number one, this looked gray on the website. It's blue. It's very blue. I thought it was going to be like a true gray, or if anything, a green leaning gray based on the pictures. But that is not Drop's fault. That's the website, and possibly even just my computer's fault. So, but also this is really, really fuzzy. So it completely overwhelmed the other yarn. It's blue. My swatch is blue. I didn't even make a very big swatch because I got this far and said, I don't like it. So I stopped. And I'm going to have to get a different yarn to work up with this to make this sweater, because I still want to use this yarn to make the Keep It Warm sweater. That is still the plan for this yarn. That has not changed. This is going to move to the stash. I'll find a use for it. I've already seen some things that have struck my fancy that I might be looking for in the future. So this is going into stash. I'll use it for something different. This, I'm going to find another mohair. I want something that's more, probably going to go with an actual mohair rather than a sari or alpaca, because I do think those are finer. You're going to see less of the, you'll see more of the actual yarn and less of just the yarn held together the way this one is. I don't know if it's the way I was holding them, because you can, I don't know how well this is showing up. You can see this side looks pretty blue, but on the pearl side, you are seeing more of the gray come through in the pearls. So I'm not sure. I might do some more research into this, but for now, you know, I have 2 sweater projects on the go, so I have some time to think about this and make sure I'm finding the right thing and doing right by this yarn and this pattern to get the sweater that I want in the end. So that is it. So my future acquisition is going to be a better pairing for this yarn. If you have any suggestions, mohairs that you've worked with in the past that you really liked, especially on the thinner side, I don't mind that. I would like to see this yarn coming through a bit more. So I am happy to learn from the experience of others what has worked for you in the past. So with that's all of my knitting business that I've been up to lately. And I'm not sure what other, I know other people will often recommend things they've been watching or things they've been listening to. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. I will say the knitting podcast that I have been keeping up with lately is AKA Nora Knits here on YouTube. Been enjoying that one. I watch a ton though. I can keep shouting out more podcasts. So there's that. And then I just finished a good audiobook. It is called Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. And if you enjoy space horror, I give it a solid thumbs sideways. The ending portion was amazing, really sucked me in, really got me. It is about the captain of a space vessel that repairs communications arrays in space, satellites, I guess. So they keep the satellites repaired, but they're being replaced by robots. So they're out on their last mission when they receive a distress signal from a long lost ship that gives very space Titanic vibes. And they go to recover that, and things are not as they seem, and they go horribly wrong. But it is an interesting adventure. It's a little bit thrillery, has a lot of jump scares for a book, I would say, is how I would describe it. But it was fun for a spooky season read in space. So that's all I've been up to. I'd love to hear what you've been up to, both in your knitting and what you've been watching or listening to. I love a good audiobook or podcast, so please feel free to recommend those below. And I hope to see you again very soon, where we can discuss some of the progress I've made on these projects. And I'd love some input and hear from you on what you are thinking. If you are like, no, stop, don't do that to the sleeves, use the regular needles, you know, come at me down below and I'll read your comments and we'll see if it will change my mind. So until next time, I hope you enjoy all of your crafting endeavors, and I will see you again soon. Bye.